this environment we're in was made possible by the forces explained by Marshall McLuhan. The technological environment explains how we get to this state, 2004. The content of this environment is responsible to a person named Giorgio Gomelsky. Anybody in the audience ever heard of Giorgio Gomelsky? Nope. This is loud enough, right? Perfect like this? Yeah. Giorgio Gomelsky was born in Soviet Georgia, 1934. He's presently living on West 24th Street in Manhattan. Every musical event, from Charlie Parker, underground cinema in the 50s, Hard Day's Night, the script for that, the Rolling Stones, Why Mick Jagger Goes Like This. Check the coffee table book, came out over last year by the Rolling Stones, talking about themselves. Check page 48, where Giorgio has 3 pages explaining where this came from. You know, Mick Jagger always goes like this. Giorgio then created the Yardbirds, helped Michelangelo Antonioni to blow up, because the Parisians and Romans thought London was a swamp in the early 60s and they didn't understand what was going on, so they called Giorgio to find out, because he'd been there in the 50s as part of the new realist world, cinema world, underground film. He went on to first, when he brought over the Yardbirds in '65, they met Frank Zappa before anybody knew who Frank Zappa was. He brought Frank back to London in the second trip, did the famous concert with the London Symphony. He brought in Captain Beefheart. He created all that movement that's around Frick and those guys. What's the term for those guys in the late 60s, early 70s in Paris? Robert Frick and Fripp. And anybody know what that movement's called? You know, gong. Too far back. Anyway, so he did all the music in there. Then he went to New York, and he did not start the punk scene. I started that. That's another story. But the interesting thing is that the punk scene evolved into his club, the Green Door. So all those musicians at the Kitchen and that came out of Giorgio Gomelsky's. Read the book Rock Till You Drop by John Strasbaugh, a New York journalist. It's an amazing story. If the John Birchers, they've always said in the 60s and 70s that rock and roll was a communist conspiracy. If they knew about Giorgio coming out of Georgia in during World War II as a young kid, because his father got on the bad side of Stalin, they would realize that, yes, rock and roll and pop culture was a communist conspiracy, because Giorgio is the guy behind it. It's not a well-known story. Only Bill Wyman had apologized to the world and apologized to Bill Wyman, to Giorgio for the fact that Brian Jones got Andrew Loog Oldham while Giorgio had gone back to Switzerland for his father's death, funeral and all that. And when he came back, Brian Jones had brought in Andrew Loog Oldham, and the Stones were out of his control or management. So Bill Wyman was the only Stone in his book to apologize to Giorgio. It's an amazing story, and it's typical of my life. I always get to the bottom of things. When I met Giorgio, this all unfolded. I didn't know about him until a few years ago, but I was thinking tonight, the form is explained by Marshall McLuhan, and the content, in a way, is explained as a hidden environment by Giorgio Gomelsky.